of October 27th, 2025 to order. We acknowledge that we were meeting on the traditional treaty territory of the Pascagoula Nation and the Métis homeland. Trustee Keller to do the mission statement.
We strive to be respectful and enthusiastic school community dedicated to quality education for all.
Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
And can we have a motion that the Kelsey School Division Board of Trustees approve the regular board meeting agenda for October 27, 2025 is distributed? Moved by Trustee Stevenson, seconded by Trustee Sinclair. All in favor? Everyone got a chance to look at the minutes? So the Kelsey School Division. Did you? Okay. The Kelsey School Division Board of Trustees approved the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 6th, 2025. Motion by Trustee.
Wasn't here.
Keller. Seconded by Trustee.
Sir, late. Am I late?
Yes.
We are
1 minute.
we're making a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 6th, 2025. Trustee Keller made the motion, seconded by Trustee Fox. All in favor? And we have a writer presentation today for the fully audited financial statements for 2024, 2025.
Thank you. I'm Megan Boyer. I'm with Baker Kelly, and we've concluded the audit for the 2024-2025 school year. I'm just going to kind of go over the highlights of the audited financial statements. If there are any detailed questions at the end, please feel free to ask away. And if not, at the end of the meeting, Graham will have some signing information for you, so you can get this finalized. If you turn just a couple pages in, let's see where you guys are. Okay, so yeah, just because I know yours, I'm on single sides in here. There we go. All right, so if you turn to the very second page in the independent auditors report, we're just going to start there. So essentially, our independent auditors report is where we state the opinion that we've placed on the set of audited financial statements for the period of June 30th, 2025. The second paragraph down states, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Kelsey School Division and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. So that basically means that Kelsey School Division has received a clean audit opinion for the fiscal year. Just below that, it gives what the basis of our opinion is placed on. So we conducted our audit in accordance with the Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's report. We are independent of Kelsey School Division in accordance with the ethical requirements that are relevant to the audited financial statements in Canada, and we have fulfilled our ethical responsibilities in accordance with these requirements. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Next, it goes on to just discuss the responsibilities of everyone involved with this set of financial statements. And the first are the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance of the financial statements. So that would be everyone here at this table. So it highlights that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards, and for such internal control and management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatements. So it also states that in preparing the financial statements, management is responsible for assessing Kelsey School Division's ability to continue as a going concern, which means continue to operate. Disclosing as applicable any matters related to going concern using the going concern basis. And then it also states that those charged with governments are responsible for overseeing Kelsey School Division's financial reporting process. The next page over lists out the responsibilities that we as Baker Tilly had for auditing the financial statements. The first line just states our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. A little bit further down, it says, as part of the audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, we've exercised professional judgment and maintained professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess risks of material misstatements in the financial statements, which we've kind of covered already. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting in error. Any fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, and an override in controls. That's just a highlighting statement that we always kind of want to ensure everyone is well aware of. While we do the best due diligence that we can, detecting fraud is not the point of the audit that we are conducting. The point of the audit that we conduct is to ensure that it's free of any material misrepresentations in which we found. We also obtain an understanding of the internal controls that are relevant to the audit to design our audit procedures that are appropriate for the circumstances. We evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies that are in place and the reasonableness of any accounting estimates that are related. And then we conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting. And finally, we evaluate the overall presentation structure and content of the financial statements, including any disclosures, and whether the financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. So that just kind of outlines what our auditor's report contains and does. The very next one is a second auditor's report. And this is a specific report that we're required to do, which says that we've audited the AIS enrollment verification report, which is required by Manitoba Public Schools. And so it says that we've audited as of September 30th, 2024. It's always running on a 1 year behind basis so that we're covering the school year audited. And it says, in our opinion, the enrollment information in the report to the Kelsey School Division as of September 30th, 2024 is prepared in all material respects in accordance with the provision of Part 1, Sections 1.1 and 1.2 of the Public Schools Enrollment and Categorical Grants Reporting for 2024 and 2025. It goes on to state the basis of our opinion, which is the same basis that we would find on the first auditor's report, except for we're going further with the standards of the auditor's responsibilities to audit the enrollment information section of the report. There is an emphasis of matter on this one, and we just want to state that the enrollment information is prepared to assist the school division to provide information as required under the Public Schools Enrollment and Categorical Grants Reporting for the school year. As a result, the enrollment information may not be suitable for all users of the financial statements. It just goes on to state everyone's responsibilities, which again are fairly similar to the first report that we went through. And then contained in the report is just following that is the information for the enrollment reports. We found no errors or issues with those reports.
So for those enrollment reports, do you actually take a random name or two and then go see if they're registered in the school and then go see if they attended, or do you just take the numbers that we provide?
We take the numbers provided and then we access the numbers from Manitoba Public Schools, and we confirm that the numbers you provided agree to the numbers from Manitoba Public Schools. It's kind of gone by the wayside where we go and confirm individual children and individual schools because of the Privacy Acts. It's more so just frowned upon than anything. So we're confirming numbers at this point based on two different sets of data. The next report that you're going to find is basically just our management letter. So these are just items that we want to highlight or note based on the audit. Again, it goes over what we did during the audit. And then it says, during the course of the audit for the year ended June 30th, 2025, we did not identify any significant deficiencies in internal controls. It is important to note that management is responsible for ensuring the school division has adequate internal controls and sound business practices as part of overall responsibility for ongoing activities. The school division's policies and procedures are present to safeguard its assets and provide reasonable assurance that errors, irregularities, and illegal activities are promptly identified. So, and what we're saying is, there's nothing that has come to light. There's no issues with the procedures that Kelsey School Division follows. There's no reason that, any processes would need to be changed or updated based on the audit that we've completed. It just says, in closing, we appreciate the cooperation from you and your staff during our audit visit. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us. So during throughout the entire audit, everyone was open and transparent with any questions that we had, any information that we required, and there was no issues throughout the audit. The next letter, which is on the back of that page, is our management report, and it just states management's responsibility for the financial statements. So the accompanying consolidated financial statements of Kelsey School Division are the responsibility of the division's management and have been prepared in compliance with the legislation and in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles established under the Canadian Public Sector's Accounting Board. A summary of those policies can be found in note 2 if you're ever interested in reading them. And then the preparation of the consolidated financial statements statements necessarily involves the use of estimates based on management's judgment, particularly when transactions affecting the current accounting period cannot be designed to provide reasonable insurance that the assets are safeguarded. So, basically what all of these are saying is that management are the ones who make the decisions for the financial statements. Anything such as estimates such as amortization or areas like that have all been determined by management and have not been determined by us as auditors. And that the consolidated financial statements have been audited by Baker Tilly, which is independent external auditors appointed by the board. So that's just to clarify that any information, judgment, or application to the numbers that are involved in these financial statements were decided on by management, and that Baker Tilly merely went through and confirmed the reasonability of these numbers. The next couple pages are just definitions, which I don't think we need to go over in detail. But the first one that we'll probably want to look at is your consolidated statement of financial position. So these numbers highlight as kind of that we'll break it down a little bit better, but these highlight the overall financial picture of the school division. You're going to note that cash in the bank has gone up by just over 1.1 million, or well, roughly $1.1 million at the end of 2025. And then you're also going to note that roughly a lot of your liabilities held consistent and constant over the last year period, which means that the cash in the bank has gone up, but you're not doing that because you're not paying bills or you're not, you're holding back payments on different things or deferring an excessive amount of liabilities. So the cash in the bank, and I mean, Graham can speak to that, but it's looked to have gone up due to increases in funding overall that was received from one period to the next, primarily revolving around nutrition and Jordan's principal funding. Is that pretty much what you saw as well? Yeah. Okay. Just wanting to confirm we're on the same page. Outside of that, everything else felt fairly consistent. The borrowings from the provincial government went down at a reasonable rate this year. That's basically just your debenture repayments. That asset retirement obligation number sits on your books at 4.7 million at the end of the year, up slightly higher from the previous year. That number is not something that speaks to the financial position of the school division, and that's something that we kind of like to draw attention to, is that number is it's fluctuating and it changes year over year, A, based on the asset retirement obligation, and B, based on estimates that are provided by the province of Manitoba for the rate that these assets would potentially be retired. And at the end of the day, that asset retirement obligation is essentially stating that all the schools would be retired at the same time. And we all know that that's likely not an occurrence that would ever happen. But that is a number that the province of Manitoba would like you to retain on your financial statements as a worst case scenario sort of number. And basically it means that if you were to retire all of the schools at one point in time, or any of their schools at any point in time, so close any of them, in order to properly decommission those schools, there could be the potential to remediate any asbestos involved in those schools. And that's where that number is generated from. You're going to notice that at the end of the year, there's an accumulated surplus of 17.175 million. And I'm going to touch on that a little later as to the positive increase that we've seen in that and the hard work that the school division did over the last year. On the next page, you're going to see your consolidated statements of revenue, expenses, and accumulated surplus. So this just outlines the overall picture of revenues coming in and the high level picture of expenses going out. So for the 2025 period, Kelsey School Division took in roughly $28.5 million of revenues, up roughly 1.3 million from the year prior. As well, they had expenditures of roughly 27.135 million, which was up again slightly higher year over year. And Kelsey's school division's major expense is obviously staff wages. And that's just something that will be a continuing expense for Kelsey School Division and is just always going to be your highest expense on the books. Overall, this year, there's a net current year surplus of 1.4 million, which is 1.1 million higher than the previous year's net surplus. Historically, over the last number of years of audits, there's been a teetering position for Kelsey School Division of, just breaking even, some net surpluses, but not dramatic net surpluses. The operating fund used to see year over year net deficits, and in the past year, this increased surplus is something to show about just the tightening fiscal responsibility that Kelsey School Division definitely implemented and worked towards ensuring that any of those net deficits that were starting to accumulate were being rectified, which just puts a stronger financial position and a stronger going concern position for the school division. So at the end of the year, that's going to result in a closing accumulated net surplus of 17.175 million. Your statement of changes in net debt is also something that we kind of like to highlight, in the sense that everyone wants to see their net debt being paid down. Net debt is going to be carried on pretty much any sort of institution. And, holding a net asset position is not necessarily favorable for an institution such as Kelsey School Division, because the idea is these funds are supposed to be spent for the students and towards the students. But just dwindling down that net debt year over year is important. And this year you're going to see that net debt actually decreased by $2.5 million, which is something to just again comment on the fact that the surpluses are being effectively managed and used, and Kelsey School Division is ensuring they're in a strong financial position. Consolidated statement of cash flows. We won't go over this in much detail. It shows how the money of Kelsey School Division it flows in and out on a year over year basis. So it essentially shows what items and what cash amounts are being spent on in each of those areas, which results in your bank balance year over year. There's not any drastic increase or decrease in spending that would be notable from a year over year basis with Kelsey School Division. Everything holds fairly consistent on spending, focuses primarily on wages. With this year, there was a minor capital asset additions. It does look like there was large capital asset additions, but that was more so in the sense that the Scott Bateman Middle School roof and renovations were completed in this year. Those have been ongoing projects with which Kelsey School Division has been spending money on year over year, but this was brought into finalization this year. Next, you're going to see your notes to the consolidated financial statements. The first two notes are basically just discussing the accounting policies. These are standard across all school divisions. And so Kelsey School Division is just required to follow the same ones as everyone else across the province. I am going to draw your attention to your deferred revenue. That's just a note that we always like to highlight so we can ensure that year over year spending takes place as it should in the correct programs. Kelsey School Division at the end of last year had a deferred revenue of $242,000, and at the end of this year they have a deferred revenue of $652,000. The increase this year is primarily related to the nutrition programming and funding that was received in the 2024-2025 school year. A large portion of those funds, $258,000, were carried over to your subsequent school year. In discussions with Graham, he did say that a lot of that funding has been utilized and will be utilized in this current school year as changes have been made to the cafeteria at MBCI and just the nutritional programming that's been changed at that level. So we're
probably also like to interrupt, sorry, but important to note that those monies have to be allocated according to the pretty strict rules that have been given to us by government to do it. And I don't know if we got actual approval, but I think at this point they could possibly say the fingers crossed, but they're going to take the money back. But at this point, we haven't heard that. We have a solid plan going forward, but I just don't want people thinking we have $400 and something that we have to spend for sure.
For sure. And that's also a great point to note, is that by moving this balance of revenue onto what would be the liabilities section of your balance sheet, it does move it out of that revenue and expense section of Kelsey School Division, essentially saying, we received the money physically. We may not be able to, either we're going to fully spend the money if they allow it to us, or if we have to return it, we have that money earmarked to be able to return. Fingers crossed, that's not necessarily what's going to happen. But that is something to take note of. The only other note that, we may want to just go over slightly is, just looking to see which one. is your expenses by object note, which is note 13. And that note basically breaks down your expense categories and then puts them against the budget. And it kind of gives you, this is what the expense category was for 2025. This is what we budgeted for 2025. And that's what that exact same expense category showed in 2024. So it just kind of provides a really good summary of the information. There's lots of pages in here, lots of numbers, and this kind of gives you a really good summary of those numbers that are included in here. It gives you a straightforward salaries. This year was $18.6 million. Last year it was 18.1. You know, you budgeted 18.2, but that's kind of where it fell this year. You know, it shows your employee benefits and allowances where those numbers fell this year. It gives a good breakdown of the high level expenses within the school division, how they lined up against what was budgeted for these expenses, as well as where they landed last year. Most of the expenses, as you can tell, held fairly consistent. I mean, everything is going to go up year over year. That's just a fact of life. But a lot of them held fairly consistent, minimal increases. And again, the only large jump would have been your salaries. And that's pretty common for any sort of school division. So just kind of going on a little bit further into the set of financial statements here, if you want to turn to page 5, which is your analysis of consolidated accumulated surplus, this breaks down that $17.1 million number that you're seeing on all of your financial statements. And so what this tells us is that your operating fund, you have accumulated surplus this year of $992,000, where actually in your previous year, that number was sitting in a deficit position. So that speaks to the strength of the financial position of Kelsey School Division this year.
So is that 992, is that including the 400 and however much for the nutrition that you said we carried over, or no? Okay.
No, it's so, and then you have your equity and your tangible capital assets. So, I'm not sure how aware everyone is of, you know, our accounting terms, but your tangible capital assets are your school buildings, your buses, your, large scale computer equipment, things like that. Your capital reserve account, which is $25,000, that's essentially an amount set aside, I believe, for school buses is what you guys set aside your amounts for. Last year, that was a little bit higher. There was buses purchased in the prior school year. Obviously, a portion of that money was used. And then your school generated funds. So these are all the bank accounts and monies held at each school's individual level. So each school has their own bank accounts, and they do monitor some revenues and expenses out of there. So if you accumulate all of the schools together, there's a surplus of those school generated funds of $359,000. It is important to note that the board did make a motion to set aside $280,000 of this surplus to carry over for educational assistance in the 2025-2026 school year. So what that allows the board to do is designate a portion of that surplus. It has to be spent on educational assistance in the upcoming school year, but by designating portions of your surplus, it allows you to stay within the preferred operating fund surplus limit. Of course, there are strict rules and regulations on what can be a designated surplus. Unfortunately, you can't just do it for anything and everything, but it is a great function to use as Kelsey School Division continues to appropriately accumulate surplus funds within the school division. So just going from here, all of the remaining schedules are essentially detailed breakdowns of those numbers that we just covered here. So where the 992 comes from, where the 15.7 comes from, and so forth. I won't bore you with the details of all of those numbers unless there is something that someone wants to discuss specifically. Graham, is there anything in those numbers you want to go over in detail? Nope. Okay. They're your numbers, so I just wanted to clarify. The only other thing that I will draw your attention to before I conclude my presentation is right near the very end of this package, and I'm going to see what it is on your pages here. It's just important to note. It comes in at page 29. It's the calculation of administration costs as a percentage. It's this one way here at the very end. So this, we always draw attention to this kind of at the end of the audit because it is important and it is something that we have to pay attention to as auditors. And essentially what it says is, and the overall, you know, I guess, presence of the financial statements is that only a certain amount of your overall expenses are allowed to be allocated to division administration. And in the North, you are allowed 4.25% of the overall expenses can be allowed to division administration. So what this shows here is that the total division administration expenses for the year were $1.337,429, less out of the liability insurance of $39,000. You had $998,000 worth of expenses for the school division administration. This over the entire base of the operating expenses, which through some calculation works out to 23 million. The percentage for Kelsey School Division came in at 4.19%. So it is under the limit of 4.25%. And that's something that we always want to make note of. And that's just a number that we want to ensure that we keep our eye on year over year. So aside from that, I'd like to open the floor to any questions that anyone may have, any clarification anyone may need. Take your time with the statements. I can wait for a few minutes.
I don't know necessarily if it's a question for you, Megan, or a question for Graham specifically. But the difference in the vested time calculation, sorry. I highlighted it, I'm not going to be able to find the page. There was just an increase of over $1 million in that, and I just wondered what.
No, wrong line. 57,000. You might be looking at the current year surplus.
No, it was before we started talking about the surplus.
The non-vested sick time went up by 57,000. Normally, you see it flow up and down based on whatever staff. I mean, largely out of our control. This is just what staff have paid for sick time and what we owe. Usually, it hovers anywhere between $150,000 and $300,000, but it's just a capture in time at the end of the year, basically of what's on the books and who we owe from the staff.
And I realize that we have to carry, like, that we have to have that accounted for in.
You're probably looking on page 7. Page 2. It'll be on page 2 as well, but 7. So this is where I guess, just kind of a broad statement, like the board has, I find some of the other statements broadly irrelevant. The operating fund is the one that the board should concern itself with most.
Yeah.
You have very little control over the capital, at least the major capital. Most of those projects, I mean, while we may discuss them, they're ultimately approved by the province. The debt that comes with them, also the province. And largely it's because we've shown some kind of major need. So the roof at Scott Bateman being an example.
Right.
The school funds, they're fairly nominal in the big picture of things. We have to capture it, but it's not. But the operating fund is a reflection of what you budget for every year, what we do the special levies out to the communities with, and what we ultimately can control with some control. I guess I don't want to say we can control it completely because some things are, once we set the plan in motion, it's hard to steer the ship away.
Yeah, it wasn't the non-vested that, less than just the current year surplus went from 367. I know this page 2.
Oh, okay, you're just talking about the surplus, yeah. So
The surplus itself had a big jump.
So the surplus was more than anticipated. I mean, I know one of our funds, like largely we try and budget for 0 as a school division typically. These last couple of years, obviously there's been pressure from the department for us to recover. We went through the process of coming up with a payback plan. We were expecting probably somewhere below $1 million in surplus.
Right.
And the difference is largely just probably made up of the difference in cost between what we budgeted for staff and what was the actual cost. And in some cases, out of our control, right?
Right.
Whether there's staff that goes less because they have less accreditation, whether we saw more retirements, we saw less anticipated maternity leave. I mean, there's quite a big jump between the salary ranges a lot of times between the new teacher and
the
or an
retiring
unqualified
teacher.
teacher or
Right.
retiring teacher. So there was a lot of that. There was certainly some unfilled positions and vacancies we carried the whole year that normally we would fill. So,
Yeah, just when we were looking at overall, like that's a pretty big chunk of
it is.
where the surplus comes from.
Yeah, and again, there was conservative spending probably across the board, but obviously because wages makes up 85% of our costs.
Right.
That's where a big chunk of this is coming from. Okay, more than anticipated, probably more than I would have wanted to see. But it does put us in a much stronger position for next year and gives us the ability to make decisions we probably couldn't have made in the past in terms of spending.
Yeah.
Like those designated EA positions from our surplus.
There's no other questions?
You'll be with us next year, do you think?
I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, we do want to thank the school division for the opportunity, obviously, year over year to complete the audit. We'd like to thank Graham and his staff. They prepare a really thorough, detailed audit package that allows us to do our jobs appropriately. Which is not always the case sometimes in our industry, and Graham and his staff do a very wonderful job at ensuring everything is followed in accordance. And so we do want to thank and note that appreciation as well. And if there is any questions that do arise from the financial statements, I mean, you can direct them to Graham, you can direct them, to myself at Baker Tilly. Feel free to just call and ask. It is your financial information. So if you do have questions, obviously Graham is the one who knows it best, but we can always feel free to help out from there. I have left some signing documents with Graham. So at the end of all of this, if everyone is comfortable with the information that has been presented this evening, there will be signing documents to complete, and then we'll be able to finalize the package and get it off to the province on time. So that's always wonderful. I know a little bit historically, there was a hiccup or two there along the way, but the school division has definitely recovered over the last number of years. So.
Thank you very much for coming and presenting it for us.
No problem. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Graham. This is getting easier every year.
Not sure if Graham feels that way when I send off my list of questions, but I'm glad it comes across that way to you. Thank you all.
Do we make this motion now or?
Yeah. It's next thing on the agenda.
Okay.
All right. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night. Thank you for your time.
Look, we need cameras on this building at some point. Right on the back and the front.
Mhm.
It's sad to say, but I think that's kind of what we're getting. the only building we have without a security system. I don't know what that tells you.
No, it's definitely good to have them for that, so that's one thing.
We have a motion, that the Kelsey School Division Board of Trustees approve the 2024-2025 audited financial statements. Moved by trustee Stevenson, seconded by trustee Sinclair. All in favor? Carried. Any unfinished business today?
I don't think so.
For action or decision. The Christmas cards. There are Christmas cards that we give out every year. And we have two options on the table for those cards.
I thought Halloween's coming.
But you know,
These things take time.
They take time.
So, the question is whether we are, wanting to go with the ones that we normally get, or whether we would like to order them from Vistaprint at a savings of 60 cents per card. And I think you said 50 cards,
50 to 100.
50 to 100
$30 to
cards.
$60.
Yeah. Is there any? We
Personally,
buy
I
them
think,
we buy them locally.
yeah,
So it's a choice of whether we buy it locally or whether we,
We buy them from locally.
I'll pass with mine.
Oh.
do they actually have a print shop in town?
No,
They,
No.
that's a lot there.
often.
They're not, even worse.
I know.
so does anyone have any conversation about this? Like, does anyone have opinions that do you?
I'd like to see us shelf locally personally, but
Yeah.
it's not a huge amount of money.
So if there's enough room.
You know, there are schools that are going for sponsorships and different things at all these local businesses. Where
Yeah.
we can support them, I think we should.
Yeah.
Personally, that's.
I think that's just a choice. I don't think that's something we have to make any motion on. Okay, superintendent's business report.
We, just an update on the evacuee, funding. I put out a letter when we first received the evacuees looking for financial funding, so I received email confirmation that we'll be getting, $20,000 to help support. We hired an EA at the 2 early years and one at the stop even, so, that's all a little bit of help towards that. This is great. So we'll continue on that evacuee EA to date, and we'll discuss that later on as well as understaffing. But yeah, so we appreciate the government, and I had some really good conversations with the Assistant Deputy Minister, Kathy Connell, and Mr. Kaler, spelled a little bit differently, but Jeffrey Kaler from the finance department. And you know what I have to say, they were really good. They listened. That's what I asked for, was $20,000, and that's what they provided. So appreciate them listening to our concerns. Registrations, we're getting the odd ones still every now and then, but no influx of big numbers. Recognition awards coming up on Wednesday, November the 12th. So everyone should have their invitations to go. So just let RSVP Claudel. I have a meeting coming up. I've had meetings already with a couple of principals. I still have an additional couple to talk to regarding school plans, which are always linked with the continuous improvement plans, just building on and making changes to what they had done last year. So that's ongoing. Hopefully I'll conclude that between this week and the end of next week. Teacher subs, they are continuing to be a challenge. We're also, I feel, doing more as well. So there's quite a few grants out there that are giving or requesting teacher leave for different things, whether it be French immersion PD to the MRLC to, there's lots of things that are happening, and we want to be supportive of everything. But there's only so much, the school has to have a certain number of staff to keep things going, and internal coverage from time to time has been higher than I like it to be, but we're continuing to go to different places and make presentations and be at career fairs. And I went to UCN not that long ago to the education class. I asked the radio to do up a little ad, a little 30-second clip, which they did, and they'd be putting that on the air for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And the costing was very low to do that. Just finding any different way to draw individuals in. On the radio ad, I had advertised the actual amount of money that they make as well. I choose my wording carefully because I don't want to make it seem as if you're doing it for the money. However, I think some of the fallacies of people thinking that you need an education degree to subteach, which you do not, and I don't think people necessarily know how much money it is you're making, which may encourage some good candidates as well. So, and I can also use that ad. I haven't yet, but I was going to send it to each school to share it out. Actually, I did do that and send it out to everybody to share it on their Facebook pages as well. Thank you, KTA. I put this down, but maybe we didn't have a meeting in between. But just thanking the KTA for the board members, I should say, for doing the turkey trot, volunteering your time, and at each school. So thank you for that. We have an upcoming leadership meeting. It was going to be November 5th, but this goes out to a thank you to the Opaskwayak Education Authority. I was asked if I could attend or wanted to attend. It's actually 6 days, 3 days in November, the other 3 days. I'm sure it's a very highly certified kind of leadership program that they're offering to their staff, and they reached out to us and asked if we had 3 or 4 members that would like to attend. Myself, Teresa, and Rick, and possibly another person are going to attend. And of course, the first day of it is the November the 5th, where I wanted to have my leadership meeting. So I might tweak that a little bit for the following week, so I can attend. Because if you miss one day, you don't get the certification. So, and a lot of the areas of training are very relevant to what we would be doing in our jobs. So that's great, and that's at zero cost. They just offered us the position, or the spot, which is great. So, so other than that, that's I got a couple of things in camera, but.
Okay, for my board chair report, trustees Stevenson, Keller, Columns, Fox, and myself volunteered for the turkey trot on October 8th, and it just seemed like everyone had a good time. I attended a policy and finance meetings on October 10th and negotiations and personnel meeting on October 15th. The October 20th Region 4 meeting was scheduled to a virtual meeting on November 3rd at 6 p.m. All trustees are welcome to join this meeting, and I will share the link with anyone who is interested in doing that. Region 4 is also conducting their must fund committee representation or representative elections. If you're interested in putting your name forward, you may at the upcoming regional meeting. I attended the virtual MSBA board chairs meeting on October 14th, and it included greetings from the new Manitoba Education Deputy Minister, Mona Pandy. MSBA has provided nomination forms for long service trustee recognition and the President's Council Award for 2026. The President's Council Award is for individuals who are demonstrably committed to improving education for Manitoba students. Nominees will have made a significant contribution to education through in-school, board-wide, extracurricular, and/or volunteer work within the public education system. The deadline for nominations for that is January 23rd, 2026. We were sent links for a speaker series through U of M regarding generative AI technology use in education, if anyone's interested in that. And we received a letter from the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning about nominations for the 2025-2026 Manitoba Excellence in Education Awards. The categories are Teaching Excellence, Outstanding New Teacher, Outstanding Team Collaboration, Outstanding School Leader, and Premier's Award for Excellence in Education. And there's information on it on the table there. And the nomination deadline is December 4th, 2025. And is there a secretary treasurer's report?
Just to note that, upcoming negotiation dates with QP, December 3rd and 4th. We did do a bit of an advertising campaign for the board meeting dates. We sent that out a past few times and on all our platforms. And as we mentioned with the nutrition carryover, we did submit a proposal and we're waiting to hear back from Brooks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to standing committee reports and meeting dates. So 10.1, community liaison, trustee Sinclair.
Having had no meeting since the last, no committee meeting since the last board meeting, but I did confirm with Elder Edwin Jebb that he is able to attend the next committee meeting regarding land acknowledgement. And I also invited Myrna Ducharme and Teresa DeHoot to attend that as well. I emailed the RCMP to initiate a meeting request pending approval by the Community Liaison Committee. Tentative meeting set for December 3rd at 4 p.m. But having heard the negotiation dates, I'll see if I can change that. And our next meeting is scheduled for this coming Wednesday, October 29th at 4 p.m. here in the board office.
Thank you. 10.2, education liaison, trustee Stevenson.
We need to come up with another date as we're gonna plan to have one with the finance one, but the finance took the whole meeting.
10.3, policy, trustee Fox.
Yes, we met on October 10th. I'll apologize. I was supposed to send an email out to let everyone know to review policies 1 through 9 to see if anyone had any changes that they felt they wanted to make to those. Because we want to get through everyone look through the policies so that we can finally pass them, right? Melanie, just to pass them through. So we started with 1 to 9. Take a look at them. If there was anything you wanted to change, we could do that, right? And then we'll do the rest of them on our next meeting. So if somebody wants to look ahead at those ones, what is that, 10 through 16 or 19? 19, I believe, yeah. And then I think there's a bit of a timeline. We're trying to get that in for just after Christmas to get them passed, right? Was the date we were looking at. And they have to be presented twice at meetings. Was that it? Am I remembering
The
correctly?
bylaws.
That's bylaws,
Yeah.
sorry, yes. Policies, so the bylaws have to be presented twice, so. Maybe next meeting, we could take a look through all of them, I guess. If somebody has time, we could go, if anyone has any changes they want to make to any of the policies. Or anything they see that they don't agree with, then we can maybe provide them. And that's about it for the policy, I believe. That's all we talked about there, right? For the policy side of things, so.
Thank you. 10.4, trustee Halverson. I don't have anything from him to do. Okay. 10.5, negotiations and personnel, trustee Kelly.
I guess next meeting, November 3rd at noon. Have anything to concur with education liaison, and then as Graham mentioned, negotiations start that evening and continue the next evening as well. We had a good introduction to bargaining, I guess, from Allison. The group, there's some, I think you circulated the essentials of collective bargaining in there, so anybody wants to read through that. Interesting read. I guess, yeah, that's it.
Okay. And trustee Luciano, reports. Other reports, Kelsey, Vernon Center, trustee.
Nothing to report. That one I didn't talk to Cam since our meeting a while ago, so I had to touch base with him, see what's going on.
For KTA, KSD, we had a meeting and we are postponing it. The dates turned out, something came up and we didn't work out. 11.3 MBCI youth representative.
Okay, so I'll start by mentioning that we recognized Orange Shirt Day and we created like a handmade mural for that day as well. At MBCI, we had like grade awards, which is just to increase school spirit. So we have some like spirit days for that as well. As for grad, we had grad parent meetings. We had a grad parent meeting, and on October 20th, the grad student representative meeting. Fire department presentation. And there's also an Indigenous club that was started at MBCI, which I think is great. Badminton club as well. Picture day retakes, and tomorrow at Kelsey School, there is a Halloween dance, which members from MBCI Student Outreach will be helping out with. I would also like to recognize a grade 12 student at MBCI who was awarded the prestigious Horatio Alger Association Scholarship for $10,000, along with a free trip to Toronto for a week-long seminar regarding to education. That's all.
And what was that award for a student who's, like, is it like who excels in something? What was
Yes.
what was the name of it again?
The Horatio Alger Association Scholarship.
Thank you.
And what do they excel at?
It's education just wise, like
Oh, okay.
grades,
Okay.
leadership. Yes.
Awesome.
11.4, Kelsey Pack, trustee Sinclair.
So Kelsey had their PAC meeting October 14th, which I attended. Their fundraising focus for 25-26 is the swimming program. They're currently selling Domino deal cards. So it's a $20 card that gives a purchaser 10 buy one, get one free coupons for Domino. So it's a pretty good deal for them. They'll be selling Purdy's chocolates to be distributed in November, and just want to remind everyone that the red box number is 955 if you're going through the till and would like to make a donation to the swim program. The Halloween dance and carnival will be held tomorrow, October 28th. After school club started October 14th, and they run Monday to Thursday. Their next awards ceremony is October 30th. The Spirit Day calendar and theme is to be determined, and the next meeting date is to be determined. I also reached out to Principal Jay Marin for a brief report of anything that had happened since the PAC meeting. So they had their first parent and me event for the year was pumpkin carving on October 21st. That was very successful. And again, he talked about the Halloween dance. The students pay $5 to enter, and their family is free to get in. I also asked him about sage plants for his staff, and he said that 15 staff are traveling to Winnipeg for in-person sessions, and 11 staff were remaining at the school, the majority focusing on numeracy. They were attending a webinar, Building Math Minds, and the remainder focusing on literacy, new screeners and assessment tools. He spoke briefly about swimming lessons as they walk to and from the pool. They're trying to get their lessons done in spring and fall, so they avoid the students walking in the dead of winter. So grades 3, 4, and 5 should be completed by the end of November. And then kindergarten, grade 1 and 2 will start in March. And the last thing is early dismissal for November. The professional staff are working on finalizing, editing, proofreading first term report cards. And educational assistants have a session with a specialist from the St. Amant Center with an autism focus.
Thank you. 11.6, Mary Duncan, trustee Stevenson.
I spoke with Principal Lowen, and she said she has met with a couple of people from the Family Resource Center and are hoping to have them work on some traditional projects throughout the year, such as beading, medicine picking, and ribbon skirt making. She's hoping to finalize more details this week so she can start them in November. She will be participating in a bison harvest with Sean Sexsmith at Round Bend Farm on November 5th and 6th. We participated last year and the students really enjoyed it, so we are looking forward to having the opportunity again. They started their Indigenous Lunch Club and had a few guest speakers attend. This Thursday, Les Mitchell will be attending and presenting on medicine teachings, and they are starting to gear up for their report cards.
Thank you. 11.7, Scott Bateman, trustee Keller.
So no report, but I wanted to ask everybody else if they had, first of all, I guess sent out the template to your schools and if you got any responses. I sent mine out with the date of the last meeting, which was 3 weeks ago, but I haven't got my response. Not that I've made any further efforts, but, and I don't know if anybody got that kind of
No,
structured response back.
Like that's the one Trevor sent to us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember if I sent it to Jay or if I just used that in my email as I asked a question.
oh, okay.
But I can see.
12.0, the Manitoba School Boards Association, report. There's information in the folder for e-news. And, Bill 225, Public School Amendment Act. The Convention Award Program and Faculty of Education Research Lecture Series. So the Kelsey School Division Board of Trustees received the reports and correspondence moved by trustee Simple, seconded by trustee Keller. All in favor? Are there any information items for correspondence? Other than that, information that came to me. Dates to remember, the next board meeting is November 10th, 2025. Are there any, questions from the public? Is there anyone? No
I
questions?
went back on mute. I'm not sure.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
There you go. Is there any business arising that we need to?
Not before the encounter. No.
Okay, the Kelsey School Division Board of Trustees go in camera at 8:02. Moved by trustee Stevenson, seconded by trustee Fox. All in favor?